to the Relentless CEO Podcast.
Relentless!
With Adam Kifer. Follow your path to success alongside icons and industry leaders in martial arts, fitness, and more. Let's go. This is the Relentless CEO Podcast.
Do you know what is missing from the martial arts industry? Athlete development. And that's why I'm so excited for our guest today on the Relentless CEO Podcast, Ross Levine. Ross has been a good friend of mine, and he's been my trainer to help me actually tie together what I do in the gym with what I do with my martial arts training. And I've seen explosive results from working with him, and I just had to have him on our podcast as a guest. And also, as of right now, he is the current world champion for karate combat. So we do a deep dive into all things athlete development, and then we also pivot a little bit towards the end, and we start talking about his fighting and some of the upcoming things that he has on his schedule to help defend that world title. As always, we never have any sponsors for this podcast. We rely on you, the viewers, to support us. So please like and subscribe to continue to get filled in on amazing new content. Enjoy. So Ross, love having you on. You crushed it at the Relentless Summit, by the way. I'm still getting people reaching out to me and being like, man, Ross's presentation was awesome. And then, I don't know if you saw the post recently, but I was like, who should I have on the podcast? And it was like, Ross. I was like,
nice. I love it.
Easy enough.
Man, that means a lot, man. It means a lot, especially, getting that feedback coming from everyone else who'd been involved with Relentless for so long. Like, obviously, like your involvement, or you having me involved is huge. Like, just getting that level of recognition from you, because I trust you, and I respect you and everything you do in the game. But then hearing it from everyone else that has been with you for a long time, it's a really nice feather in my cap. It lets me know I'm doing the right things, and all the hard work and passion I put into what I do is paying off. So I couldn't be happier than to be on here and chatting with you, man.
Yeah, same here, man. Obviously, I've been working with you for a few months now, and the explosiveness that I've gotten from the workouts and how it directly transfers over to what I'm doing in my martial arts training has, I think, been the biggest connection piece that I've been missing like my entire life. It almost was like previously what I was doing at the gym was its own thing. What I was doing in martial arts was its own thing, and there was no synergy between the two. So thank you for helping me to marry those two things. But I know that what you're doing is missing from our industry. And for everyone that's listening to this episode, what are some ways that school owners can get better educated on the athlete development side and start incorporating that more into what they're doing with their own students?
Well, I think a good thing to start with is just visualizing what you want, right? Sometimes we get into the habit of like avoiding the end result. Envisioning what our students should look like. What do we want them to look like? What do we want ourselves to look like? And a lot of people are really afraid of that end result. So they shy away from it. And that's generally why people don't get the results they're looking for, right? It's because they never start because they don't know where they're going. So,
sure.
I know the idea of like, well, we got to have like SMART goals, right? The small attainable goals. Mm-hmm. And that definitely comes with it, but you have to have that end vision. At least, even if it's not in sight, you have to have that idea of what you're looking for. So I would say the first step is just knowing what it is that you want. What do you want your students to look like? What do you think, your kids should be looking like, whether they're on the mat, off the mat, whatever it might be. And that could be skill wise. That could be just physically. What do we expect our martial arts students to look like? And not be afraid to kind of step away from the norm, right? We see way too many times and bunch of chubby little kids doing karate. And it's like, well, we want these kids to defend themselves, right? So, what does a good, strong martial artist look like? And I'm not saying everyone has to be, ripped, shredded, jacked at the gym, but, we should be able to take care of ourselves. And I think knowing what that looks like or picturing what that looks like is a great first step.
You said chubby little kids, but when you said chubby, I was like chubby instructors, and you're like little kids. But there's a lot of chubby instructors out there too that I think need what you're doing so that they can get back to their game. I know you do a lot with helping to work with people that have had injury history as well. And I know you work with a lot of martial arts guys. What are some of like the most common injuries you've been seeing in martial arts? And then what are some things you're doing to combat that?
Gosh, I mean, it's really the whole gamut. I always tell people martial arts is the ultimate hybrid sport, right? It's not just strength, it's not just endurance. It's a little bit of everything, right? We have to be able to, especially on a competitive side, right? If you're looking at like mixed martial arts or even sport karate, it's explode, rest, but over a long period of time. So we're hitting all these different energy systems. So people get low back pain is obviously common across the board when it comes to athletics, but yeah, I mean, we have the people who are doing more of the sport karate. We're seeing a lot of like knee and ankle injuries. When you look into grappling, we get a lot of the smaller joints, shoulders, wrist, elbow, just from the grips. A lot of postural neck pain from being in certain positions. And then, of course, the full contact, you're getting trauma injuries, rib injuries, hip injuries. So all that stuff, man, we see top to bottom, a little bit of everything.
Okay, cool. I know a lot of the more traditional school owners I've talked to, it's usually always hips or knees a lot of the time. What are some things that they can be doing? You have me doing a lot of stuff to stabilize my knees better, and my hip flexibility is like heads and tails better than it was, I think, when we first did our first like sort of intro call, and you were having me do some different motions and stuff. So I know you've given me a lot of stuff to do, but what are some things that you would tell those martial artists to work on more to combat that?
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what you said, it's always hips and knees, right? If we're a martial artist, the old adage was always like, well, eventually we're kind of signing up for
Yes.
like hip and knee replacements. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. But if you think about it, we're just constantly overloading and it's impact over and over. You're kicking over and over and over, but we're not doing anything to protect it. So, when you have a firearm and you're just emptying the clip, eventually it goes click, 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 and you run out of ammo. But we run out of ammo, and now it's like, well, let's just throw the gun now. Like, let's just keep kicking, right? So, of course, you're going to beat your body into oblivion. We have to do some things to take care of our body, take care of our weapons, right? You got to clean the firearm, you have to polish it, put the new pieces on it, right? So, for martial artists, when it comes to especially hips and knees, is mobility is huge. Like, we end up doing the same stuff over and over again, and we just get so tight and so stiff. And sometimes we can mistake that strength, or we mistake that stiffness for strength because it feels so tight and we feel powerful, but we're really doing ourselves a disservice because we don't know anything else but that. So just trying to open up things. I mean, take yourself for example, right? Like you said, your hips, all of a sudden you've got this new flexibility that you didn't know you had access to, and now you're feeling better, you're moving better, you're doing things you hadn't done in years. So that's what it's all about, man. Movement is medicine, is the secret sauce.
Agreed. We had Gary Brecka on, and he was saying like the worst thing that you can do is be sitting at a desk all day, every day. So I fully agree with that. Let's talk about training cadence a little bit, because before I met you, I think I did like everything from like 2-a-days trying to murder myself to like just working out twice a week. So for people that are wanting to be active, and when I say active, I mean be able to do martial arts without it being painful, while still seeing improvement and growth in what they're doing. What do you recommend for training cadence, both like in the gym, doing like weight training, mobility training type of stuff, and then also the martial arts side?
Yeah, I mean the terrible answer, but the true answer is it depends, right? Everyone is a little bit different, and that's why a lot of the stuff that I started doing with like Turbo Sports Performance is all customized. Because the truth of the matter is, what you need and what's going to be best for you, Adam, is not going to be what's best for the person
Sure.
next to you or down the street or across the country. So, it's very individualized. What does your schedule look like? That's why in our evaluation, the very first thing we do is we break down, well, what does your ideal schedule look like? Even if we're not doing that right off the bat, I don't think there's a perfect cadence for anyone. Like, for me to sit here and tell you, you should be doing strength and conditioning 3 times a week, skill training 4 days a week, teaching 5 days a week, like maybe that works for you. Maybe it doesn't. It also depends what your goals are. So again, I think having that vision, that end result in mind, even if it's not in sight, just knowing where you want to be is going to help us reverse engineer. Okay, well, what do we need to do to get there? How do we put the rungs on the ladder to appropriately and safely get where we want to be without all the BS in between, right? So once we establish those goals, then we can start putting together not only what is going to be best for you, but what is the most reasonable. I couldn't tell you how many times I've had that conversation with someone and they say, well, ideally, I want to be in the gym 5 days a week. yeah, but that's not realistic. Like you and I both know that's not going to happen. So we always start slow, and I start on the conservative side and not so much conservative in application, because I'm going to give you stuff that's going to work, but conservative, like, hey, let's prove to each other that we can hold ourselves accountable. Let's get in there and let's build up to it. There's really no rush. As long as we're doing something and we're stepping forward, we're going in the right direction.
Now, what does Ross Levine's training schedule look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about a pro athlete, and what's crazy is that when I tell people my routine, they're like, "That's it." I'm like, "Yeah, but I put everything into every single workout." But I also got a lot of other responsibilities. But it's good for people to hear, like, "Hey, as a pro athlete, as a world champion, this is what I do." So now, when you think about what you're trying to do, maybe you should reevaluate: is this too much? Right? More often than not, people are overtraining. That's a huge problem, is overtraining. Yep. So my skill training, when it comes to kickboxing, like martial arts, I'm doing, Monday I have a bag class. Wednesday I do a pad session, a bag class. Friday I have sparring. And then Saturday is like a flexible day. So anywhere between 4 and 5 sessions a week when it comes to my skill training. Strength and conditioning, 2 days, right? I do Tuesday, Thursday, and that's actually the only thing I do that day. I don't do any additional training on that day. I purely focus on working my body because it needs time to rest, right? Those like whole 2 a day, 3 a day stuff, you're just beating yourself and like burning the candle at both ends. And then I'll do a little bit of cardio, and my version of cardio is not running. Running bangs my knees up. So I'll swim once a week. I don't like swimming, but I've gotten to enjoy swimming. I like how it makes me feel. My cardio goes through the roof. It doesn't kill my body, and I get the good results. And then I'll just do like uphill walking on a treadmill or a stationary bike for an hour, like twice a week. So, it sounds like a lot, but in comparison to a lot of other people, it's like, well, I'm teaching 5 days a week. I do skill training. I do 3 classes of jiu-jitsu. I do 3 boxing classes. I spar twice a week. And then I also want to be in the gym 5 days a week. Like, you're doing 8 more sessions than I'm doing, and I'm getting paid for this. It's like, we got to slow it down a little bit and be realistic.
So question for you, because I think you have a very unique perspective on our industry, just with your professional fighting background, but also your the physical training background and how you've been helping everyone. What do you feel like is missing from our industry to take it to the next level on the martial arts side?
Yeah. So, I mean, on the martial arts side, I think it's, and we touched on this a lot at the summit, is just like athleticism, right? Like, where are those people? I think Jody touched on it. It's like, how come none of our gyms have someone who's like 6'3", 6'4", Division I athlete coming in wanting to learn martial arts? It's just, and maybe that's the way that we promote it. Maybe that's on us in marketing. Maybe we're not marketing to that demographic where, those athletes really, maybe that's part of it. But maybe it's what's happening on the mats. Maybe it's just not attracting what people want or what people like. So, I think we're just missing the athleticism. And then if we can't attract those people, which whatever, that's not always in our control, but how do we create those people, right? How do we create an athlete? And when they go to school and people are like, "Oh, what do you do? Do you play football? Do you play soccer? Like, are you a hockey player?" They're like, "No, I do martial arts. I go to Move Martial Arts." It's like, "Oh man, I want to go there too." Yeah, exactly. So, but we don't. I think as a whole, as a genre, as a sport, we don't create those athletes. And most of our students look like the average Joe kid on the street. You would never know that they did martial arts. Yeah,
or average Joe Jim from a dodgeball.
yeah. Hopefully, well, at least they won in the end, right?
Yeah, true. They got Chuck Norris's approval too, so I guess that's good. So one of the things that we noticed when I was working for a fitness franchise is the clientele, like their body image, tended to mirror the main coach of the gym. So, for example, if the coach was overweight, most of the people in the classes were overweight. And then for the coaches that were like workout like nuts and in super good shape, you would go and like everyone in their class looked pretty lean. And I don't know if it's just like maybe they didn't start that way and they saw the coach and used that as motivation, like, oh, I want to be like that. But it was an interesting thing to see. And I'm thinking that part of the reason why we don't have a lot of athletes in martial arts is because we don't have a lot of athlete instructors. in martial arts
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So I think it probably starts there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, everything starts from the top down, right? Would you go to a dentist if they had terrible teeth?
No.
You know, it's like, would you see a cardiologist that was obese? It's like, I'm not going to go see a cardiologist that needs a cardiologist. You know what I mean? Like, I want my coach to be like, not only talking the talk, but walking the walk. And that's so important, especially like, let's be real. We're not just teaching martial arts skills, right? We're teaching these life coaching skills, these lifestyle changes, and above everything else, like I think as martial artists, and I know sometimes we're not trying to step away from it, but a lot of the things that you guys are preaching is it can't just be that, right? What is it? The substance over symbols, right? You know, the idea of like, yeah, we have all these ideals and these ideas of what we should be as a moral person, as a human, you know, growing good lifestyle values, but we can't push that unless we're acting a certain way on the mat as the instructor. So we have to live and breathe that. And a lot of times the first thing we see, whether you like it or not, if you're a single guy and you're going out and you're trying to meet a guy or a girl, the very first thing is physical, right? It's attraction.
Yep.
Do I like what I see? If not, we're moving on. So, you know, as a person who one day when I have kids and I bring them to a martial arts school, you know, because I'm sure I'll be coaching them a little bit, I want them to have other experiences. It's got to pass the eye test first. And I think if we as martial arts instructors look at ourselves in the mirror and say, honestly, like, do I pass the eye test? Do I want my kids to train for me? You know, and we need to have some wake up calls. And I think that's what's going to change a lot.
So I got a text message the other day, sort of goes along with this. And it was from another school owner, and they went to visit a martial arts school when they're on vacation somewhere. And they just took a picture through the window. And the guy teaching class was sitting in an office chair by the side of the mat, super overweight, teaching the class. And my response was like, I'm like, that's everything that's wrong with our industry in a picture right there. So for the school owners, though, that are listening to this, and maybe they fell off for a little bit, because I had a year that I fell off in my training previously. And I know it can be intimidating to get back started because you feel like you're behind all the time. What's some advice you have for them to just get back going again and get back to something closer to the former version of them?
Yeah, to be completely transparent with you, the number one problem I see with people that are exactly like that, where they used to be at a certain caliber, whatever that caliber was, and then they took time off, whether they had an injury or they were sick or they had personal issues or whatever it was, they took time off, and then they go back. The expectation is that right away I'm going to be back at that level. It doesn't work that way. And what happens is when you train, like let's say you're training at 100%, and then you go on vacation for 2 weeks, right? You don't do anything. Fine. Like that happens. You deserve that every once in a while. When you get back, you can't train at that spot again. If you do, you're going to get hurt or you're going to get sick. That's just, your body will do that. There's no way around it. So it's that slow, steady, like gradual build back up. And when you do it the right way and you really plan out how I'm going to grow and build back up to that, you see progress. But the problem is a lot of times we don't. And in the back of our mind, we have these preset expectations of like, this is where I'm at. This is where I should be. And when you're not that, we fall off or we quit.
I think that's great advice. That's the exact advice you gave me too when I came back from the surgery recovery. It's like, hey, don't go 150%. And I'm glad you said that, because my brain is always like 150%, otherwise you're a bitch. So it was good to sort of have that reinforcement to not go so hard this week, and be able to communicate that to my other coaches that I work with as well. Just
to add to that a little bit, what I always tell people is it's okay to give 100%, but 100% shouldn't always mean intensity. It should mean 100% effort, right? Yep. Your 100% effort doesn't have to be the same every day. Like if the intensity effort is 100 on day one, 75 on the next day, 50, 80, 45, 100 again. As long as your effort matches whatever that is at 100%, we're crushing it. You know, so it doesn't always have to be go 100% intensity. It's 100% effort of whatever you have that day.
So you know what's interesting is how I learned how that converts over to fighting. Because when I first started doing like full contact training, I was trying to do 100% power in every freaking punch and kick. every single time, just because like when you're training traditional and you're hitting bags, it's just like kick back, and you're trying to hit as hard as you can every time. And that adjustment for me was actually one of the hardest transitions to go from like traditional training to like doing MMA, Muay Thai type stuff. And I still find myself falling back into that. Like Randy this morning is just like, I'm like, am I doing too much power? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're doing it again. I'm like, all right, got it.
There you go.
But,
well, but you have good coaches around you, right? That pick that up and kind of highlight that for you.
Now, if Ross Levine opened a martial arts school tomorrow, what would your typical class plan look like? Like if you wanted to develop these martial arts athletes that could be whatever your goal is for them, how would you structure it differently than what we're seeing now?
That's a great question. You're putting me on the spot here.
I know.
Because I mean, turbo sports is something that's going to come sooner than later. I'm sure it's in my 5-year plan, but everything that I put in my 5-year plan seems to somehow happen earlier than 5 years, which is a good problem to have. So yeah, it's definitely something I've been thinking about. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to a class plan, I mean, just knowing my background, you can't just jump right in and say, okay, let's start with our punches and kicks. Like I would want to really put together nice structured dynamic warm-ups that vary throughout the day, throughout the classes, that are going to reflect the things that we're going to do. So, you know, if we're doing a lot of kicking that day, you better believe we're going to be warming up a lot with our lower body and legs, you know, and it's probably going to cover the gamut of, you know, low intensity, just movement mobility to, you know, jogging to high intensity, a couple squats, some explosive movements, some plyometrics. So definitely a really solid warm up is going to be something that people will understand, coupled with a little bit of education, right? I want to teach my students, this is why we're doing this. It's not just, you know, dictatorship. I tell you what to do and you do it. I want them to understand the importance of it so that they enjoy it and want to see the results. And then if they get good results and they understand it, they're going to want to do it more, right? And then, you know, building skills with repetition. I think you guys talk about it a lot. And I was laughing when you guys were talking about reviewing all the tape, right, from the different dojos. And it's like seeing how little they're actually doing skills. So I had to reevaluate, like, okay, I don't teach a lot, I don't coach a lot, but when I do, am I giving them enough reps? Thankfully, I was like, okay, we're definitely getting a lot of reps. But I remember back in the day when I was teaching at martial arts schools, it's like, yeah, I was 100% guilty of that. You know, it's like they're all in a straight line. Everyone was just waiting their turn to throw one combination to go at the back of the line, and our school was packed, and everyone was like, we got 500 students, hooray! It's like, all right, but they're not really training that hard. So definitely making sure they're doing their drills, getting the proper amount of repetitions, and then you know, variety too, I think is huge. You know, being able to, even though maybe the topic of conversation or the topic of that class is, you know, maybe I want to master my jab cross, but we're going to do it off of several different entrances, exits. You know, a lot of the stuff that you hear Jody talking about, it probably sounds very familiar because I've been around that guy since I was 16, but it's the truth. Like there's so many different ways you can do everything, right? And it's the same way when it comes to like strength and conditioning. Right? How many different ways can I do a press? Well, you can do it with a barbell. You can do it with a dumbbell. You can do it on a flat bench or the floor or a stability ball. Like it's all different ways to get the same results in different manners to keep us not only stimulated, but entertained and getting what we want out of it. So yeah, dynamic warm up, skill development, variety. And I'm still a huge fan of the mat chat. You know, I love tying things together and just giving people a little bit of like, whether it's motivational, whether it's a little bit of like self-challenging thought provocation. I love that. That's one of the main reasons I'm at Pride Martial Arts now. And my training is not just the skill-based stuff that we do. Cause I don't think we do anything, you know, tremendously different than any other gym. But the atmosphere is amazing. And the very first day I walked in there, the chat that Coach Andrew Cornell gave just hit me right in the soul. And I was like, well, that's enough. I've seen everything I need to see. I'm here. Sign me up forever. And that was it, man. So I'm definitely making sure we end on that. And just getting that feedback from our students would be, to me, a perfect class.
I love that. And I didn't hear you say games either, which
no
think you need games to make it fun.
No.
Progress is fun. You don't need
100%.
dodgeball and all that stuff. I love
being
that.
Being good is fun. Let's be good at stuff.
The other thing I want to point out that you said that I hope all the school owners listening heard is like if we're doing a lot of kicking, guess what? We're doing a lot of things that involve legs during the dynamic warm-ups. It's strategic. That's what it is. It's not like we're just doing jumping jacks every class to warm up because it's easy. And that's what we've always done. We know. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I absolutely love that. I would also encourage, I'm going to plug Ross for a second, encourage you guys, if you are a school owner and you're like, man, all of this sounds good, I don't really know where to start, I would say hit up Ross on Instagram and start working with him so you can start doing all of these movements and things yourself, because I've learned so much about how to coach our athletes better just from doing the workouts that you're programming for me, because I'll be going through the motions of something and I'm just like, how have I never learned this until right now? Like, how have I never done this movement? And then when I'm sparring or working footwork or shadow boxing, I feel like the push off stronger when I'm going forward into my jab now and all of those different things. And it's because a lot of what you're having me do in the gym directly is translating to that. Like even all the mini band stuff, like my explosiveness when I'm bladed is way better now just because of all the mini band work. And so it's been amazing. So if you're not working with Ross, definitely please reach out to him.
Appreciate that.
Ross, who you fight next?
Yeah, so the opponent, I actually just had a great conversation with the new president of Karate Combat today.
That guy's crazy, by the way.
yeah, but you know what? I'll tell you what, he's crazy in honestly in a good way. Good. Okay. And I think in this day and age, you got to be a little crazy to get what you want, and you have to put that out there. You look at what social media does. As much as we love the guy, Conor McGregor ruined it for everybody because that's what sells. And it is what it is. So, you know, on a personal level, I've had nothing but amazing interactions with him. He's super nice, very, very respectful. Yeah, his name is awesome. But he's a super good guy. And he really truly wants Karate Combat to grow. And not that the former president didn't. I just think there were a lot of a couple missing links, right? And this is what's new. So it is what it is now. I love Adam. I thought Adam Kovach was amazing for what he did. And I'm still very pro everything that he does. I'm a huge supporter of him and I believe in him. And, you know, Awesome has just a different method of getting what he wants. And I know that all the craziness, there's good intentions behind it. So with that being said, there's a very, very, very good chance, I'd say 99.999% chance I will be fighting in Las Vegas, December 15th. Sick card.
Look at my tickets.
Anthony Pettis, Benson Henderson main event. There's a very high chance you're going to see me competing for another title, and we're just waiting on confirmation for the opponent. So things are going to be good. Things are moving. I've been ready. I've been training, so I'm excited.
I will say it's cool to see who they're signing recently to Karate Combat. Like the Pettis signing, I think was a great idea. Randy's the one that told me that Henderson got signed. I was with him the other day, and he told me that. So it's cool to see them just pulling more athletes in and more names in as well. And I'm excited to see you fight whoever you're going to fight. Is it who we talked? I won't say who it is, but is it who we talked about before? No. Okay.
No. Although I would love that, but yeah, not just yet. Maybe next year. I mean, that's a possibility, but you know, honestly, that's probably a good thing because more room for all of us, right? We should all be dominant in the space. So I'm pumped for that. It will not be who we discussed, but it will be another very fan-friendly name that people are going to be like, ooh, interesting. Okay. So yeah, it's going to be cool.
All right.
I'm pumped.
That's awesome, man. I'm so excited for that. Yeah. We'll fly out there and support you.
Oh yeah.
So funny story. So I was talking to Jody and I was telling him about when you and I were just working during the seminar with each other, and we're working the spin side kicks, and you were like, yours was maybe half effort. You were doing it, not even fully extended the spin side kick, but you were hitting with your heel every time in my glove, and I was like, I could feel Ross's kicks in my spine, and he wasn't even trying. So if he kicks someone full blast, he's gonna murder them. And then Johnny's like, man, he goes, Ross and I were sparring one time, and this dude kicked me, and he's like, I thought my rib was broken instantly. But he's like, I didn't want to let him show it. So he's like, I started grunting harder with all my strikes. But he's like, I felt that shit for days afterwards. But
you know what's funny is I remember that exact moment because we were, I believe we were getting ready for the WKC. And that was the first time that we were all going out together. I mean, Jody and I had fought together for a long time, but you know, obviously I've been with him since I was 16, but team fighting as a group, you know, until we started the NYC team and then Impex, we had the WKC, so we were training really, really hard for that. And we were getting ready, and it was just one of those days where he was just whooping my behind left and right. There was a lot of those days.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm so sick and tired of this. So you're eating my foot, buddy. It is what it is. And I'm just driving this as hard as I can. I got to slow you down. So yeah, I remember that. It was crazy, but Jotty's the man.
So who would win today between you and Jotty?
I'm going to plead the fifth, man. In point fighting, probably still Jotty.
Yeah.
Full contact.
I think you got full contact.
I just, I don't want to hurt the guy. I don't want to hurt the old man. I kick him in his knees. No, it'd be fun. But you know what? You know what's crazy is I did a seminar. Jotty came down and taught a seminar. I was living out in Colorado at the time, doing my internship. And we did a seminar for a good friend of ours, Mark Beyer. And there's a dude who competed on the circuit for a long time. I'm not sure if you remember him, 5-knuckle bullet, all that. So both of us really, really great friends with him. And he had us out. Jotty was doing a seminar. So obviously I came out to support. And, I'm doing my thing. Jotty's doing his thing. And then it's like, all right, we're going to spar. So we start sparring. Jotty and I are working through everybody in the ring. And we're like, all right, let's do a round. So we start doing a round. Next thing you know, it's like we're sparring and we're sparring and we're sparring. It's like this round is awfully long. Yeah. Mark cut the clock off, and everybody else stopped and we're just watching us. We probably sparred for a good 6-7 minutes straight, just That's back awesome. And forth. It was like one of the coolest things that people had seen, and it's not on video anywhere, man. But those people are gonna remember it.
Who's the hardest hit that you've been given by? So who's hit you the hardest out of everyone you fought so far?
There's been a couple that do sting really hard. Rest in peace, Donald Vickers. When I was a kid, Donald Vickers hit me. It was a grown man. We were 16, and that was the first time I'd ever been flash knocked out. I mean, wow. Donald was huge. Donald was big and explosive football play. Yeah. He was an athlete, and
he was an athlete.
I got hit really, really hard by Donald. Damon Gilbert was very strong. Brian Ruth had some zip on his strikes. Trevor always threw everything with bad intentions.
Trevor Nash.
I'd say those. Yeah, Trevor Nash. Everything just bad intentions. Always wanted to hurt you. Even I love Trevor, great guy. I'd say those are probably the guys that really hit me the hardest. Obviously, Raymond's spin kick is probably the hardest thing I've ever felt. I mean, there's been times when I've blocked Raymond's kick through both arms and had a bruise on my chest. So I mean, Ray's spin kick is different. I'd say those guys for sure.
Nice. Question for you, because I've seen tons of videos on social about this. And who was I just listened to? It was John Haggerty, who's the current kickboxing champ. He was talking about it. He goes, I think it's 200 rounds of sparring before you're not afraid of any situation. You're not afraid to get hit in the face ever again. And one of the things that I think I was talking to Jotty about the other day is, even when I was point fighting, I was always afraid to get hit in the face. And once I did the first full contact match and have been sparring more in Muay Thai where you get hit in the face all the time, I'm like, now I don't even think about it. So many martial arts schools, though, are very afraid to go that route. What's your stance on it? Because I feel like for my own kids, and just speaking for my own kids, I almost would rather have them spar with the full Muay Thai headgear and have them get some face contact a little bit with boxing gloves in a safe setting, so that way they don't fear it later on. But I know that's for my own kids. I can't make that decision for all kids. What's your stance on the thought process behind that?
Yeah, great question. And I totally understand where a lot of school owners are coming from. Maybe they think it's liability. Maybe they think they're going to lose students or anything like that. I get that. But at the same time, we're also preparing these kids. At the end of the day, people started teaching martial arts because we wanted to give people a sense of can you defend yourself? We want to give them these skills. And sometimes a skill is learning how to protect yourself. And you're not always going to be on the winning end, of every little thing. So what I do personally, and a lot of the stuff I do now, when I am coaching, I'm coaching primarily kickboxers and amateur and professional kickboxing competitors. So those are the classes that I'm teaching right now. As I get older and I step away from competition, I'll expand into everything. But one of the things that I tell people is you can't just expect to know how to deal with getting hit. One of the biggest transitions is learning how to get like take and give, right? So a lot of the drills is you have to break down these drills so that people become comfortable in like tough scenarios so they don't freak out and go into fight or flight. We have to teach our students how to appropriately deal with things, how to block defensively, how to be responsible when they're attacking too. So it can be as simple as teaching them how to guard, and instead of doing everything on pads or a bag, do partner drills where, you know, someone throws a hook and they're hitting my glove, but I'm getting that reverb. So, you know, we're not trying to knock each other out, but I'm feeling what it feels like to take it. And then as I get better, it's conditioning, right? We condition ourselves to be like, okay, I'm good here. We do this silly drill where I have someone hitting me in the body, just light. And as they're hitting me in the body, I'm kind of punching past their head. So I'm learning how to get hit and give and not like freak out every time I get touched. Right. And you could do the same thing with your forehead, right? Have someone just kind of gently tap, tap, tap. And I'm just taking it off my forehead, putting my head in a good position and working through that. And then this way I eliminate the fear of like, okay, I can still get hit and do what I have to do. And now when I put my defense like responsibly behind it, I'm actually way better than I was before. So I think it's just applying I think it's just coming up with the right drills, being creative, and learn how to take the fear out of what it is. Again, it's reverse engineering, right? What are you afraid of? Let's label it. Let's make it real. And now let's find all the ways that we can reduce that.
I'm sure that helps too, because one of my bad habits when I first started fighting was on defense, I would turn away from every hit, but then you can't see what else is coming afterwards, and then you get caught and it hurts even more. So
that's the dangerous stuff.
Yeah. So I think that drill, even the forehead one, helps them keeping their eyes forward as they're seeing the punch coming. I see that as a big thing across the board.
Yeah, and then the last thing, as you get to a higher level and you're sparring and doing things like that, it comes down to culture, right? The culture of the gym. You don't want to be the gym where everyone's knocking each other out. Those gyms exist, unfortunately. You know, rule number one in our gym, and we say it a lot of times, especially when new people start coming into sparring. Coach Andrew always says it. Rule number one, guys, don't be an a-hole. That's just what it is. Like everyone's got stuff to do the next day. Not everyone has like the same idea of like, oh, I'm going to be a world champion one day. That's not everybody's goal. Some people got to go to work the next day. Like some people got kids and family. Like we can't be going to getting concussions in gym. So even with like one of my mentors, Bazooka Joe Baltellini, you know, world champion kickboxer, glory world champion. Him and I will go hard, you know, hard to the body, hard to the legs. But we take care of each other's head. You know, you only get one brain. You know, you can replace a hip, you can replace a knee, you got one brain, you know, so we got to really take care of that and understand that the most important person in the room, I say this all the time in my seminars, the most important person in the room is your partner. All right. It's the most important person in the room. It's your partner. You got to take care of your partners. You can't break all your toys. You got no toys to play with.
I love that. That is awesome. That's a great line for kids too, for sparring.
Yeah. Big time. Don't break your toys.
So one of the other challenges I see posted about constantly in our industry, and it used to be a thing at our school until we switched our curriculum over to be more like stand-up striking, and then the culture changed with it. But so many times these school owners post that like, how do you get kids to not be afraid when they have to start sparring? Because like I just saw a post on the other day where it's like, man, all of our kids like don't want to spar when they get to like whatever belt they need to start sparring in. So I sort of have a concept I believe in, but I'm curious on what your take is.
I mean, and I might be totally off by saying this. I might be completely wrong. I don't think there should be a time limit on when you start them with sparring, because I think it builds this barrier of like, oh my God, when I get my yellow belt, I'm going to start sparring, or sparring is something I have to do when I'm a yellow belt. So you spend all this time potentially being afraid. Even that might not be your intention. Right. Your intention as the instructor might be like, hey, we're building all these skills so that when you get to yellow belt, you're ready. But this poor little kid might sit there and be like, oh my God, when I'm a yellow belt, I have to spar. You know, there's a lot of fear. And if we don't address that, that's a big problem. So, I mean, like I said, I could be totally wrong. I don't know. But my theory is like, we need to get people sparring, but in controlled ways. Like it doesn't always have to just be free sparring. It can be partner drills. It can be give and take drills. It can be I throw a combination, you throw a combination, right? The same way you can break down a long combination into all these different segments, the way you break down a form into different segments is the same way you can break down sparring. It doesn't have to be a live round. It can be very controlled give and take drills where we understand like, okay, I get hit, you get hit. I get hit, you get hit.
Yes.
I defend and counter, you defend and counter. Like we can build that in. And this way, they're not only going to recognize like, oh, I'm actually good at these techniques, but they feel safe, they feel ready, and then they've already been exposed to it. So now when you start to slowly like give them more space, and then free sparring kind of happens organically.
Yep. I agree with everything you just said. I think that's so important because I think where most schools fail on this, and I'm not trying to shit on traditional schools, but it's usually traditional schools, is they go from having no punching or kicking contact with their partner to all of a sudden free sparring. And it's like, well,
it's a lot.
I'm like, you're like, they've never skydove before or something. And you're pushing them out by themselves with a parachute. They don't even know if it works or not. So I think that the contact drills, I think, are so important. Like we'll even do stuff where they just head shield and they're working jab cross and trading back and forth so they get used to actually feeling impact and not being afraid of it. Yeah. So I love that. I think anyone that's listening, if you are facing that problem, Ross just gave you the solution right there. That's so important.
Yeah, drill breakdown, creativity. That's all.
Yes, love that. Ross, how can people get a hold of you if they want to work with you, if they want to pick your brain? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Best way right now is all through my Instagram. So it's at Ross_turbo_Levine. All of my content out there, even if you're not sure, like there's a lot of people that are tentative and maybe I don't want to annoy him, but just watch my content. Some of it is I try and splice a little bit of humor in there once in a while. Sometimes people see it and it's like, man, that really resonated with me because I make these like kind of sly jokes, but there's truth to it, Yes. So that's definitely the best way to reach me. Some of them, if you have my cell phone number, you're more than welcome to reach out, text, ask questions. But I always joke with people, I'm a nerd about this. Like, this is what I'm truly passionate about. I love what I do as a physical therapist. I love what I do as a strength and conditioning coach. And I certainly love what I do as a martial artist. And I've been fortunate to have all of these pieces that I've married together. And I'm even more passionate about all of that as its own entity. So, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, ask questions and go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. And you put it together so great. And if you guys start working with Ross, I recommend it, obviously, but he has a whole app that he uploads your workouts to. There's videos that if you're unsure about the form of it, you can watch the video and then go through it. And you're really good at checking in too, and just seeing how I'm feeling. And I appreciate the hell of that. I've worked with other personal trainers before, and it's like they set up the workout and then peace out, you're good. So that element is awesome. And then if they want to watch your fight, that's 99% confirmed on the 15th. Do you know where they go to watch Karate Combat?
YouTube. Just follow the Karate Combat YouTube channel. But more importantly, this is the first show ever that they're doing in Vegas. So the only time I've ever been to Vegas, I was 16 years old. I've never been to Vegas really. So if you need an excuse to go to Vegas and you like me, come check it out. I'm sure tickets will be crazy. Yeah. Nice. There's even it's the UFC event is the following day. So, I mean, it's like a weekend of like crazy, if you like combat sports, like being in Vegas that weekend is going to be insane. So
yeah, we're doing that back to back.
Definitely will be there. Oh, are you going to do both?
Yeah. I heard Vegas is a good place to celebrate a win also. So
that's the plan. That's always the plan. So
awesome. Well, Ross,
love it, man. I'm pumped, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us. And guys, follow Ross. Pay attention to what he's doing. He's definitely one of the key people pushing our industry in the right direction, in really helping to transform how people are training. And I appreciate everything you've done for me as part of that process as well.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for the opportunity and the platform to speak. Man. Thank you guys, everybody on the Facebook group for checking in, saying you wanted to hear me talk. Feel free to contact me anytime. Adam, I'll be seeing you soon, my friend.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man.
We're unstoppable. To the top, we about to go. That CEO, I need to know the impact we about to grow. Competition, comical. Straight A1, we on the road. Money focus for the goal. Tell them what they need to know. We unstoppable.